Thank you. Item 6.02, technological expression and delivery. Overview plan for moving FCPS to a one-to-one digital conversion. Dr. Lockhart and Mr. Root.
Yes, good evening again. First of all, thank you, students and teachers and parents. The better half of this presentation is after me. And so they are patiently on standby, and we'll do our best to get them up here. They have some great technology related to our curriculum to share with you this evening. The first thing I'd like to do is kick off this informational item with you with a video clip. So if we could roll that video clip.
I would like to see every student being able to access Wi-Fi, because sometimes teachers tell us to take out our cell phones because our cell phones, even on the 3G network, can go faster than the computers that we would have to go into the computer lab to use. They're so much faster.
We're not able to have the degree of insight that we want to have with our current technology. We're limited to what we can accomplish in the limited time that we have.
A lot of the times, I think the big issue is really just speed, that when students get frustrated with computers not working, they stop. They don't want to keep working. They sit down and they say, I'll go do it at home. And at home, they're distracted by doing other things. In school, when you're focused on the assignment at hand, that really drives you to be productive. But when things aren't working for you and you don't really feel like you have the resources that you need, like, you're not stimulated to work.
The long-term outlook is not good. With enrollment continuing to increase, if technology and the amount of technology we have in the schools stays constant, we're just going to have a decrease in the amount of technology available to students and consequently the performance of students.
Nothing will ever replace great teachers in our classrooms. Our classroom teachers engage our kids, build relationships, and inspire them with their knowledge and energy. That won't ever change, but the tools we give our teachers and students have to change. Here's the question: why would we put yesterday's tools in the hands of tomorrow's leaders? It's time to add on to the fundamentals of teaching and learning by giving our schools a modern technology infrastructure and modern tools. But this isn't just about new tools. It's about the learning that will come from how teachers and students use those tools. This is about having the chance to innovate, to update our classrooms, and personalize teaching and learning. For the first time, we can let every child reach their full potential by personalizing instruction. Students and teachers need access, anytime, anywhere, to real-time and relevant resources. That's what the digital age means. Our students are ready. Our teachers are ready. We're not talking about a distant future. This is about how our students learn and work in the real world, right now. It's time we connect with kids the same way they connect with the world and with each other. The choice is simple. Frederick County can either help our students fulfill their destiny as leaders in the modern world, or we can let them languish in the past.
Okay, so our goal tonight is to talk with you, share a little bit about our plans for technology moving forward. This also relates directly to the one-time funding request, and you're going to see, we're going to talk a little bit about sustainable funding over time, but the $6 million funding request that was part of the proposed budget for this year. As you saw very well from the video, and you've seen this probably mirrored in the BYOD presentations and updates we've provided, we really want to be able to keep up with our students. We're not trying to replace teachers. We're trying to provide tools that our students are very familiar with, that our teachers are becoming more familiar with, many of them experts, many of them wanting to, so that they can best reach our students. Again, not a replacement for teachers, just an enhancement to our outstanding teaching force. And it's also beyond our classroom. We want to build a technology infrastructure that interconnects our operational and instructional frameworks so we can be efficient and we can support the work that's happening in the classroom from all levels of our organization. Oops. So I know you know some of the current realities. Older computers, you heard some students talking about that, not enough access. And when we do have access, because we have older computers, it's sometimes a lot slower or doesn't work. A couple of the good things that we know is we do have a improving infrastructure. The one-time funds that we've received in the past have helped us near our goal of having all of our facilities with wireless capability. And we've also, over the last 3 years, have been developing digital resources and an electronic curriculum app. And now we really are looking to the horses to carry that. I'll share with you that this initiative really isn't anything new. A few years ago, we started talking about best practices with you. We showed you this graphic of the Salient 5 instructional practices, and one of those pieces is technological expression and delivery. And so this initiative really highlights and gets at the ability to provide access anytime, anywhere for our students and staff. As I mentioned, with the one-time request for funds, we want to begin that systemic digital conversion with an ultimate goal of a one-to-one environment. We want to increase access and efficiency with our resources, not just for our teachers and our students, but for our entire staff. We really feel obligated, as you've heard those students speaking, as you think about our own children and what they're experiencing with technology outside of school. We feel obligated to provide them that same experience in school, the one that we know they're going to expect beyond school, whether it's college or career. We also know, and what we've heard from our students, that more relevant, timely, and engaging instruction can happen through enhanced technology. More opportunity to personalize and individualize. You're going to see some examples tonight that truly demonstrate that. Digital citizenship, we've talked a lot about that for a long time, and particularly with BYOD. We recognize if we're having students utilize technology in our schools, we need to help them to become good digital citizens. To be able to increase that access to resources and content, and to organizationally become more efficient and better stewards of our resources. These are our 5 intended outcomes of this initiative. The first deals with achievement, our most important goal, I believe, in our school system. It not only deals with increasing the achievement of all our students, but looking at the achievement gap and looking at opportunities for students who maybe don't have access to technology. The second is to, I talked a little bit about it, is to get kids ready either for college or career through 21st century experiences. Is that you? Okay, just making sure.
Very dramatic.
If anybody turns their radar off,
Let's say, turn it off, Derek.
let me get up next to the mic so everybody can enjoy.
Again, like a picture.
Really big piece of this, building capacity of our staff to lead, teach, innovate, and support students. So we recognize that there's lots of PD that has to happen. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about some stakeholder groups that we've been meeting with. In fact, just yesterday, Dr. Albin and Derek and I were in a room with the current and the last 8 teachers of the year from Frederick County, including the National Teacher of the Year. And professional development was the top of the first piece that we talked about and really a driving force in that conversation. So we recognize that a big piece of this is not simply what devices are we going to get, or that's just the means to an end. It's about what do we do with it that matters, what do we do with it that counts, and professional development has to be a big part of that, as well as building the capacity of all of our staff. And you're going to see also tonight a non-classroom-based person talk a little bit about how they're using technology to become more efficient in the role that they serve in our system as well. And the last piece, commitment to a stable and sustainable funding stream. We need to start looking well beyond our usual funders for partnerships, foundation funds, grants. We received, as you know, close to $700,000 in the grant at the middle school level earlier this year. We need to seek those out and establish some of those partnerships so we can sustain, because we know that one-time funds are one-time funds. And so we need to see that recurring to make sure that we can continue to train and provide the necessary opportunities. So we've been getting a lot of feedback from teacher vetting groups, our curriculum writers, Dr. Albin's community chats. I've been to many of those, a lot of them center around technology. Dr. Albin also has a technology advisory committee, which includes business folks, community parents. Lillian is on that committee as well. We have a large internal stakeholder committee that's been meeting. Yesterday, again, we had a separate meeting with our Teachers of the Year. Our administrative leadership group, a large AL group that we meet with on a regular basis. In April, worked with Julie Marker, and we'll be going to the County Council of PTAs to provide information, but also get feedback as well. And then our own BYOD work group and the schools that are implementing BYOD. We've really learned a lot from them. That's helped us change policy and regulation. It's helped us put in some best practices, some safeguards, all sorts of things that we've learned from that. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we're delivering on the promise of having that wireless infrastructure in place in all our buildings. We're building on what we've learned through BYOD and all these stakeholder groups that I've been speaking to you about. And we're developing a strategic plan. In fact, I think some of the project management team was together today.
That's correct.
Outlining a lot of next steps. It's a multi-year process. We're not going to acquire funds and throw something in place and expect it to work really well and leave it. It takes time. It takes planning. It takes a careful process that we're developing. It also takes ongoing systemic communication, not just with you, but with our stakeholders, with our teachers, with our families. Professional development, I could probably put that up there 10 times. And evaluative measures. We want to measure is what we're doing, is it effective? Is it meeting the goals, the intended outcomes that I put before you earlier? Is it meeting that? So here's our timeline. We had to think long and hard about what's our best entry point? What's our best jumping in place? And you'll see in a minute when Derek outlines the budget for you, $6 million is a starting point that's going to get us going. So we looked at our schools. Well, we have 36 elementary schools, and we have 10 high schools, and we have 13 middle schools. We looked at where's a manageable number of students. Where have we been doing, where have we been focusing? Where do we already have the beginnings of bringing devices into school to support instruction? Where do we feel like we could really start to make a digital conversion as opposed to piecemeal it across our system? And that landed us at middle school. As I mentioned, we have close to 900 devices getting ready to be deployed to our middle schools. We've had curricular teams writing content, digital content. That process is well underway, and we feel like we have a good opportunity at middle school to start. That doesn't mean that elementary schools, and you're going to see some fantastic examples tonight or high schools can also take advantage of perhaps the technology they already have, or that they're going to acquire, or the BYOD program. We also expect that those folks will also take advantage of the training that we're going to provide that's going to be ongoing. And I'll talk about just a little bit about that in a minute too. We feel like a 3 to 4 year approach allows us the time. It doesn't wait forever, but it allows us the time to be systematic and careful and learn from year to year. It also hopefully completes the project with minimal device obsolescence, meaning the things that we put in place won't be obsolete, hopefully. And the approach minimizes the disruption in the classroom as we transition. Some important prerequisites. Okay, beyond the one-time funding, we have to have dedicated funding. So we need to be looking for ways to continue to make it happen. Digital resources. Mr. Anderson started that track a few years ago. Dr. Seaton, Brett Stark continue that work with their curriculum specialist, and again, you'll get to see some things tonight. We're working on a comprehensive professional development plan, and a lot of that is being driven by the work that we have in some of these stakeholder groups that are really paving the way for us there. And we also have to look outside of FCPS to help us implement. And so we'll be, Derek can speak more to that if you have questions, but we will need some appropriate support to help make sure we do it right, and that we're capable of doing it in a timely fashion. So we have a project management team together, and we're working through that. We're moving as quickly and carefully as we can. There's a lot of collaboration that's going on, and the management team is going to continue to fine-tune the budget allocations to develop a more detailed plan. But I'm going to ask Derek to speak just a little bit about that $6 million request and what we'd like to do with that.
Yeah, so, sure. We requested $6 million, and I kind of broke that down. You heard Steve say earlier that we weren't necessarily going to say, we're going to go buy 10,000 iPads for all of our middle school students. We wanted to very carefully be able to target the correct technology for the correct curricular area for the correct level of student, and that may vary. It may not be all the same device for every student in every grade level in every subject matter within middle school. So we kind of did the averages a little bit, and then we'll have to back into those with curriculum as we figure out what the correct type of device is. So we figured out a price point for a device that would meet us in the middle of different types of technologies, and then we added a slight, we'll call it a management or overhead fee on, which Steve spoke of earlier, that my shop isn't large enough to deploy 10,000 devices in a timely fashion. So I will have to lean on a vendor to assist us in that deployment. Lots of vendors have lots of different ways to do that. Apple, for instance, has a program of deployment where you can pre-configure, and then as you order, they preload the configurations and send it to you. Microsoft does similar situations, and I believe the Google systems are doing something similar that's soon to be released as well. So we'll have to lean on that. With all that said, we're looking at about $4.25 to $4.5 million to support student devices above and beyond what middle schools already have and what we're adding with the Digital Natives Grant, which, as Steve said earlier, is 2 class sets of tablets and another class set of iPads for every middle school in the county. Above and beyond that, we're looking at about $1.25 to $1.5 million to upgrade teacher technology. It won't do us a whole lot of good if the students have all these great new devices that they can use, and then the teacher's computer still takes 20 minutes to boot up and get logged on. They won't be able to interact with the students and teach from the inside out, as we've been talking about a lot. And then, of course, everyone that we've spoken to for feedback has said professional development is key. We've done a book study on the topic. We've talked to peers around the country. Everybody says that's key, so we've allotted about $250,000 there. to be able to have some summer workshops and things like that to do professional development for our teachers.
Right, and we're also building into our regular professional development programming funding for the technology initiative as well. So if you remember, we've had EEA, local EEA, Educator Effectiveness Academies running in Frederick County for the last 3 years that we ran throughout the course of the year. Teams from each school, 3 times a year, met, got trained. That was for part of our state curriculum rollout. We're going to use that same model and the same funds that we already have set aside for that to promote this instructional technology training as well. We're looking at some technology boot camp opportunities this summer, as well as starting to take a look at the date we used last year. I believe it was October 17th, which was a day off for students. And last year we did a lot of choice sessions for teachers and staff. We're looking at that same kind of model this year, but centered around this technology initiative. So beyond what we've provided here in this budget in terms of professional development, we're also building in opportunities systemically as well.
Correct.
And do you want to talk a little bit about just the project management plan basics here?
Sure. In a previous life, I've had a little bit of experience with project management. So in the plan that we'll develop and are already in process of in development, we'll be actually spending about 4 hours on this tomorrow afternoon.
Yep.
We'll outline certain high-level things. To start with, there will be project goals, objectives, and the budget, which you've already seen has started to take shape here today. Secondary to that will be identifying the project stakeholders, and we've actually already started that process as well. Those stakeholders involve all kinds of different people. Dr. Lockhart and Dr. Albin will provide us the charter, per se, for the project, right? And then we will identify who's required to manage those areas. Curriculum will be involved, my shop will be involved, the communications shop will be involved. So there'll be a lot of different stakeholders involved. Those stakeholders will manage the individual tasks within their projects, and we'll identify those in the tasks, milestones, and measures section of the project management plan. Along with that, we'll want to identify project risks. What are the risks to our system for doing that? There will be a long list that different groups will manage along the way. And of course, important to all of this, a communication plan is paramount, so we can communicate with the board, within the system, and with our community and our parents as well, too. And of course, there's always an issues log that you'll track at the end. That's basic project management stuff. But that's kind of at a high level what the project management plan framework would look like.
So before we bring our students to give us a little glimpse to that, actually the near future, the future that we'd like to provide greater access to all our students, I'd like to provide the board, Ms. Schaefer, an opportunity for any questions before we move into that portion.
Do we have any quick questions before
I'd
we
rather
get to
see,
students?
can we see the students first? It's
Sure.
getting late.
I have a lot of
Good
questions.
choice.
No, I want questions afterward, but I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
see,
yeah. Right.
I'd like to see the students first.
Sure.
You've been waiting so patiently
Yes,
with
they've
those
been very
awesome
patient
tablets and
today.
devices over there.
Thanks, everyone. I'm excited to have the opportunity to introduce our speakers today, our presenters. So we have 4 schools coming to us today, all from different levels, CTC, Spring Ridge, Windsor Knolls, and Lewistown. And so if you don't mind, I'll just introduce them sort of as they come up. And so they're going to give you a little bit of a glimpse into what does a digital learning environment look like. We saw the pictures of a traditional learning environment, but they're going to give us a picture. Now that we're living BYOD, some of the folks have just taken it and ran with it, and it is so impressive to go out and see in the building. I know you guys that have been to the CTC have seen this in action, so I'm excited to bring it to everyone today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marianne Thompson. She's our system network specialist at CTC. This is Joe McGovern. She works for in the Academy of Health Professionals, and she brought a student with her. This is Jenna Cease. She's an 11th grader at Catoctin High School. Okay.
Evening, Board. Dr. Albin, President Schaefer. At the CTC this past year, we really have implemented BYOD and is really come into play. We started bringing it up last spring, and I went back to our TV multimedia students, and I don't know how many have read the paper article on Brian Morrison. He was in there a couple weeks ago. He was one of our TV multimedia students, and he took one class period and interviewed a couple of his friends, and this is what they came up with about technology at CTC this year.
Picture.
Technology is grand, Brett.
Thank you. We worked hard to put this together. I'm happy to bring you this.
More technology, more
This
technical
was,
issues, right? That's the way it
This
goes.
was a radio podcast. It didn't have video. I'm going to give it one more try. How about that?
There we go.
One more try. If I had a device, it would probably be open right now.
Right.
Well, that's true.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we could do. Yeah. I think it's just, there we go. Yeah, all right. Just patience, right? That's going to happen.
Oh, at the Career and Tech Center, I do everything on my own computer. I do all my labs. The software I use is available for download through Cisco's website. So I can take our labs home, do them at home on the same computer. I don't have to transfer them, I don't have to email them, I don't have to use a thumb drive, and just go back and forth with the same computer, connect to their hotspot here, and I can transfer my documents just that easily. And it saves me time, energy, and results in a good grade.
It works because I have access anywhere at any time right then and there, so there's no running to the computer lab, no logging in, just getting onto my device.
Now I can use my cell phone to do a project and still be in a group and do my project instead of going to a computer lab and all of us huddling around one computer trying to see what we're doing.
And so that's the end of the video. And I'm going to move right to Mary Ann's PowerPoint.
A little bit of glitch in there.
Did you plan this, Brett?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can play that one later.
It's gonna
Okay, so
happen.
at CTC, we really have utilized BYOD. Our students are able to use 3-Ring, Quizlet. We have several programs where all their curriculum is online, which is our biomedical program with Project Lead the Way, and with Cisco Systems in our A+, our computer and tech analyst program. They use Edmodo. And then a lot of our students, in order to be enrolled in CTC, are also enrolled in the virtual high school with English classes and math classes and other courses so that they can meet their graduation requirements. So they're able to bring in their devices, and some of them are all-day students where they stay all day, and in that time frame between their morning session and their afternoon session, you'll see them with their devices working on their classes, especially their math classes that a lot of them take at the virtual school. So this is our biomedical program. This year it's been really wonderful for them. They were able to, through a grant, have laptops for every student in the class. So when the students come in, they take their laptops out, they use it from the moment they get in there to the moment they leave class. All of their curriculum is online. They access it through My Project Lead the Way. And then they're able to see things like this. They'll pull it up, they'll have their PowerPoint accessible, then they'll have all of their links to all of the online resources. Like here, this project, they are learning about light refraction in the eyes. Here in our automotive, we had a problem where, we couldn't use the traditional computer setup in there because of the way the environment is, but now with Wi-Fi in there, they're able to access the latest technology and to use laptops and pull up things. And so we'll see, we're having a bad record with video, but we'll see if you go to the next one. You know, the next slide. and play this. This is actually a representation of, this is a link that our students are able to use on their phone. They can scan the VIN number of the vehicle, and through Napa Pro, they're able to get the information right there. And then that student's able to take that information over to the laptop, all of that right there on the screen, that's what he's seeing. And then he's able to pull up exactly in the Napa Pro website the parts that he needs to order. And this is him going in there and finding what he needed to order and be able to pull it up. They also have another, I believe they call it the alt database, that he's able to pull up schematics, and he can have the schematics on his phone and bring it right to the car. And so that's industry standard. They're able to be right on top of what is going on in the career workforce, and right there he's got his part and he's ordered it. On to the next slide. And then here we have a house project. Many of you know that CTC built a house. Here's our electricity teacher reviewing on through 3Ring the best practices. He took an instructor video here, and he's showing his students what they're going to complete prior to coming out to the house. So they're able to review it, and then he has his iPad on him when he's out there and can show the students what's going on. And then in here we have our culinary, who do not have a computer in their classroom other than the teacher computer. So instead of having to pack up and head over to the computer lab, they're able to pull out their phones right here. They're working on a worksheet, and they didn't have to lose valuable class time by packing everything up, going in and having to log in. They were able to find the resources that they needed for the recipes that they were looking up, and to be able to fill out the worksheet right then. So one of the biggest tools this year has been 3Ring. You guys will learn more about 3Ring at the next board meeting. But this is our culinary arts teacher recording one of our students doing the best practices with, it looks like bacon, draining the grease from the bacon. But we have been using 3Ring in a lot of our classes, and it's been a digital binder for our teachers, for our students to be able to record artifacts of pictures and videos and podcasts and other things, and then they're able to organize all of that. And so I'm going to turn the rest of the time over to Ms. McGovern, our AOHP teacher, who has been really utilizing 3Ring and Quizlet and other resources. And she's going to talk about how her classroom has changed over this last year.
Okay, so I started working at Career and Technology Center 12 years ago, and at that point in time, yes, I had desks in a row, and I presented. I had an overhead then. But as you can see now, if you look at the class as a general overview, there's all desks are in groups, so we use a lot of the Salient 5 collaboration, questioning, kids working together to determine whatever the project is for the current day or week. So can you go to the first? Okay, so I do have 10 computers in the class, and I have between 12 and 24 students at a time. So kids do use their own devices, they use their phones regularly. This set of girls actually is looking at the 3Ring. They had done their activity. We've done different things with doctors, visits, and organizing instruments and doing podcasts, but these girls went online and they were evaluating their own performances. So, I would say, okay, this is going to be 5 points on the test, and they go in and they say, oh, didn't do that right. And so they tell me a note in the comments, I should have added this, I should have done that. They can go back and reevaluate and redo it. So it's not like I have to stand right there and do it for them, which is pretty important in the real world. Okay, and then my next circle is 2 gentlemen that are actually doing hands-on work. They're using autoclave and sterilizing. So lots of times they're given a syllabus at the beginning of the week, and they say these are the 5, 7, 8 things you have to have done by Friday. And then you can see Emily in the front. She is actually doing some research to answer the questions that go along with a lot of the work for the week. In the back group, they're looking, and yes, Jenna is there. They're looking at comparing electronic blood pressures and manual blood pressures, measuring it, seeing about the calibrations, how often you have to do that, And so they're doing some general research there. And then in the last group, these two students actually are using Global Scholar. It's an online testing, web-based, so I give them practice tests. They're getting ready to be certified, so they go through, they do their practice tests, they find answers, they talk collaboratively about, is that right, or what do you think? Therefore, when they go to take their certification exams, they have been exposed to a broad amount of information without me having to hand them a piece of paper and then them handing it back to me, and I say yes, right, wrong. They're self-correcting, self-regulating, and then they get graded on like a participation. So we have lots and lots of ways to participate, lots and lots of ways to grade them. So if you're not essentially a good test taker, you have a lot of other options and ways to show that you really have a broad base of knowledge. And again, it's self-regulating. Kids know how they study, what's best, what's easiest for them. They're able to incorporate a lot of their own practices, which I really think is getting them ready for their careers and college readiness, which is pretty much our goal. And this is Jenna. And actually, she is one of the students that Dr. Allen was talking about. She helped judge Thurmont Elementary Science Fair. And unbeknownst to any of us, she was already in some of the other videos. And she's an avid BYOD girl.
I go to Catoctin High School as well as CTC, so I get a really good experience with BYOD. And I've been using it a lot in my classrooms, and it helps me learn what I need to learn and how I need to learn it. We use different apps and websites that help me learn. Like in my statistics class, we use this website Poll Everywhere to get real data, and we'll take out our phones and we'll look at the website to get real data to find out what numbers we're working with and like how to apply it. At CTC, I use it to, as Ms. McGovern said, to record what skills I'm doing and to self-evaluate and to really just teach myself. In another one of my classes, we use Google Docs to collaborate, and we can work as a group typing an essay or working on a PowerPoint from different devices at the same time. And I take my tablet to school every day. I have a Nexus 7 tablet, and I use that almost every day in my classes. If there's something I don't know, I'll just look it up, and I don't have to raise my hand, or like I don't have to go to a book for information that might not even be in there. I can use the Wi-Fi that's provided in my tablet to get the information that I want to know if it's not provided for me.
Thank you, Jenna. Appreciate it. Do you guys have anything for them, or go to the next group?
This is sort of funny. What did you find when you compared the manual and electronic blood pressure? I'm really curious because that's a...
I'm pretty sure that I personally...
Can you come to the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I personally thought that the manual was better, but that's just because I learned on the manual, so I like the manual better.
I was just curious because
Yeah.
I thought it's a perfect thing for you to be investigating.
Yeah.
Because you'll certainly
It
be in a
is more
situation
accurate.
where you'll have to use one or the other. Maybe you have a choice, maybe not, but it's good to know. I mean, I think that's a good piece of information for all of us because many of us have our blood pressure taken on a fairly regular basis, and, you know, depending on who's taking it, what time of the day it is, or what kind of machine is being used, there's a big difference on what the blood pressure can be, and those few points can be dividing line between being dangerous and not. So I just wanted to know if you had really explored that and had come up with an opinion, so thank you for that.
Mrs. Cusimano?
So I'm fascinated watching the video of CTC and all of the different, arrangements. I do want to say this, and I know Brett got sweat on your brow over that presentation. I just want to point out, I love technology. This is the field that I work in, but this is kind of an everyday for our teachers. At this point, if you're a teacher in a classroom, you have to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And if it's not working and it won't come on, they've got 40 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is, the clock is ticking, they've got material to cover, the show must go on. So I actually appreciate that that happened tonight, because I think it's very important for people to grasp what it's like to sort of stand in front of a classroom and have some problems sometimes. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's okay. And from hearing from folks that are living in this environment, a lot of times the kids will help, and it's okay. Or you have a backup plan and you go to that. But the key is to not get frustrated with it. It's going to happen, and you just, you pick up and move on.
Yeah. So getting back to CTC, because I'm seeing multiple devices, lots of different rooms, is this part of, what do we consider you? One of our high schools? And are you on a replacement cycle with our high schools for hardware?
For hardware?
Yes.
I don't know of any replacement cycle
Yeah,
that
we
we're
don't
on.
actually have a firm.
We actually only got onto the FCPS network about a year and a half ago. CTC was actually manning their own servers in their own environment. We still have 5 labs that are isolated that run independently of, we use FCPS for our internet, but they still have their own servers for Cisco, for computer tech analysts, for web design, for CAD.
Right, so your graphic editing, this is a problem that we've had for years, is the amount of storage space and the power of the machines, the processing and memory power. When you're trying to do video editing and you have to save multiple steps of your project.
So our TV multimedia is also on their own, or in their own isolated lab environment. They actually run Macs.
And you guys are doing amazing work. I
Yeah,
can't
so
say
it's-
enough great things about what is happening at CTC.
And what's great is we're able, because of our environment, to really try new and exciting things, and to kind of be forward in a lot of what we're doing, because we are a little bit different than the traditional high school. But we do take in students from all 10 high schools, and so because of that, we're able to reach out to all the different communities within Frederick.
Will CTC be participating in the park testing?
We don't have anything that we would test in.
I think
The
the
general high
students would
schools
participate in the
at their-
testing at their
At
home
their home
school.
school.
Okay. Great, thank you so much.
Mr. Young?
Just a quick question. With the CTC being kind of a unique building with all that's going on, does the Wi-Fi work pretty good throughout the whole facility, or is there?
So I got to personally install those Wi-Fi access points.
Yes.
We didn't do a contractor for CTC.
Okay.
And we actually incorporated our electricity students, help run the Cat5 for me. And then I taught them how to terminate the connections at the end. So it was a learning tool for them. And then I got to climb up in there. So it has worked really well. We have a couple of areas that we're still kind of fine tuning, but they were areas that didn't need Wi-Fi right at that moment, like our plumbing and HVAC's lab area didn't need Wi-Fi, but we would like to have it back there for future use. So things like that we're addressing as we do it. But pretty much, you go in any portion of the school and you'll get access.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Miller?
Well, and thank you for saying that, because that's one of my biggest things is, how do we use our CTC students for things like that? And
I use
think
them for
that's
everything.
Awesome, thank you so much. Well, my one question is to Brett, have you guys brought this to the Career and Tech Advisory Council at all, as far as the relationship? Because one of the most important thing for CTC is, in relationship to technology, is the industry-based standards. Because those kids are so close to being career-ready, we really need to have them as industry-based as possible. So have you?
Yeah, that's a good
Right.
point, and we'll certainly make that recommendation.
Because it may also be, my next point then would be, because it's industry-based, that may be a way of funding. And we have talked as a board about, advertisement, sponsorship, and I can see like an FMH, nurses lab, and, a sign or a plaque on the door, and have it be as industry-based as we can for the nursing. Same thing with biomed. Obviously, we get a lot of support already from Bechtel and companies like that, but I really think that's a...
We have done a lot of grant writing. So like we're in the process now for the Academy of Health Professions, because it's a relatively new MSDE approved course. We've written grants for that. And again, a lot of it was technology, so we can continue evaluating and using 3-ring to see how kids are working. But again, that's, limited.
Limited, exactly. And so the sustainable, and industry standards are going to change. So as the more plugged in we get to that, I think, the better, so.
I mean, I think like with our automotive program,
That's
right away,
great.
it's been
Yeah.
a huge change just in the last year, having that access with the wireless and the kids being able to pull up schematics on their phones. Our carpentry teacher talks about that too. Kids will take a picture of what they need in their book, and then they can take it over to the build site and what they're working on and be able to review it. YouTube videos are huge because those kids learn through watching.
Right.
And so by being
Right.
able to pull up relevant YouTube videos, they're able to show those kids, this is what you're going to do, best practices and all that. So we're constantly accessing YouTube.
I think the garage looked like, you know,
Right.
the one I would pull into when, you know, I'm trying to get my car done. So it's great. I think it's
I mean,
fabulous.
you would want your technician to have all
Have that
the
equipment.
tools, and we
Mhm.
want our students to have all of those tools at their fingertips.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys very much. Thank you, Jenna, for coming.
Dr. Altman had something to say?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think you have 3 perfect examples up there. Jenna, when you said learning the way I need to learn, you said it all in terms of why this kind of an initiative is so important. I want to acknowledge Ms. Thompson. She is a member of the Superintendent's Technology Advisory Committee, but she is also what you would call a catalyst, as in she has the vision, she knows where we need to go, and she is in that building every day encouraging and nudging teachers to take a risk and try this, because this is new territory for a lot of our teachers. And I know that her support is critical in the success they're having at CTC, and I want to thank her for that. And Ms. McGovern, I just have to tell you that when Ms. Thompson first described what you were doing in your program at one of the Superintendent's Technology Advisory Committee meetings, I almost jumped out of my seat, because that is the future, and that's what a classroom where students are engaged and taking ownership of their own learning should look like. So I want to thank you for taking those risks and for turning some of that learning and responsibility for learning over to your students in such a masterful way. And I'm really excited because tomorrow we have Valerie Strauss from the Washington Post will be coming to see how we're using this 3-ring product. She'll be at Deer Crossing Elementary in the morning and CTC in the afternoon, and I know that she's going to be wowed with what she sees here in Frederick County. So thank you, ladies, so very, very much.
Dr. Megali, I think, had a question for you.
Thank you very much. I think the CTC is one of the outstanding places in our FCPS. So when you have these devices, there are a variety of devices, some with very high power and some low power devices, I mean tablets, for example. Do you have problem in instruction with all this variety of devices?
We've not had any problems, and I would say the beauty of CTC, of kind of, I want to say, having everything at my disposal. If a teacher comes to me and says, I need access in this area, I can run a drop to that area. I have a different set of tools at my disposal because I have students right there that are skilled and able to do things, so I can easily adjust what needs to be done. I believe at the beginning of the year, we hurried and put an access point in our electricity classroom so that we could provide Wi-Fi in that area, and it was done within a day. So, I mean, we really have been able to cover everywhere.
Now, besides the devices you provide, students bring their own devices also?
Yeah, so most of what they do, they're actually bringing their own devices.
And what about students who can't afford them? Do you have?
So I have 2 iPads from curriculum that I was using for 3-ring, and then we also have, through our media services, we have 2 Kindle Fires, and then we also have several iPod Touches that our computer tech analyst program uses for their curriculum, but they don't use it all year round. And so I've kind of borrowed 5 of them, and Ms. McGovern's class is actually using them for Quizlet. So in between times so that the students are engaged, they're actually reviewing their medical terminology on Quizlet, which are online flashcards for them, and they're keeping engaged. We have not found yet in any classroom really where a student isn't able to partner up with another student or to have a device ready for them that we can hand over to them to use. And I asked a couple of the teachers, do you feel like any of your students are singled out by having to come up and grab the iPad or coming up and grabbing the iPod Touch? And none of them have said so, because it may not be that they don't have a device, it may be that their device is in the car, or their device isn't charged, or their device is in their book bag and they don't want to take it out. So it's not that they don't feel like they're singled out because they don't have a device. It's more, hey, it's easier to grab the iPad off of here. It's easier to go grab this. And they're really utilizing our English teacher who teaches at 7:15 in the morning before school starts. She teaches English. She has been using the Kindle Fires in a UDL process with an online website that changes the lexile reading, so she's able to hand around the Kindle Fires, and one kid's done, she hands it to they go around to the next. So they're all able to pull it out, and if they have the phone, then they can use their phone, but if they want to use the Kindle, they can use that.
Thank you very much.
But we would love to have more. We have a very limited amount, and we would love to have more.
We should equip you better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all again. Ms. Cease, our future is bright. I appreciate you coming out on a school night. Ms. McGovern, I also thank you for utilizing technology the way you have been and providing such an engaging environment for your student. Ms. Thompson, thank you so much for your leadership at CTC. All right.
Okay. We have a handful of other people that I hope are going to wow you as well. So that's just one example. Please go out to the CTC whenever you want. This happens every day out there. It's not just a one-time event. So next I'd like to invite up Lindsay Neal. She's a visual art teacher at Windsor Knolls Middle School. Windsor Knolls is a BYOD school as well. Lindsay's one of those persons that just as soon as the BYOD initiative was offered, she had both arms out and she said, I'll run with it, and she's been working with her staff to help them as well. So I'll give the floor to her.
All right, thank you very much. So my presentation is just a tiny bit different. I didn't bring any students with me. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how my classroom has completely transformed into a 21st century learning environment using Weebly and Edmodo as learning tools in the classroom. This is my website. It's neilsartroom.weebly.com. Because students have access to their devices because of the BYOD pilot program, we've been able to go completely paperless, except for the inevitable handout here and there, but generally paperless. On my website, you can find general class information, project information, rubrics, slideshows, videos, tutorials, visual resources, past student examples, and that's at their fingertips every day. I've been able to implement the flipped classroom model, or aspects of it, using this website because of the information that I've put on it. And I can also provide resources for further research of a topic, links to websites, anything web-based. And then, of course, I started a blog to communicate art happenings and share artwork, any student artwork, past examples of artwork with family and friends at home, since they can't take their artwork home until the end of the year. Actually, click on my website so that you can see, just a general outline of it. Everything is on there. If you hover over the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade tabs up at the top, a list of every single project, every rubric, every project sheet, every PowerPoint, it's all there for them to access. And then if you go down, I have just general class information, homework assignments, links to the homework hotline, my syllabi, and then I'll go into the artist statement in a minute. Yep, you can go to the next slide. All right, so on Edmodo, it's a kid-safe social networking site that's intended for classroom use. We actually have virtual critiques that are live in the classroom. I can walk around with my iPad in class and actually offer feedback to posted artwork. The students can offer feedback as well. It's live, it's right then and there, and then they can take that and run with it outside of class also. Weekly discussion topics. I take so many grad classes right now that I decided why not get them started early. So on Edmodo, we have weekly discussion topics that promotes questioning, writing, collaboration, inside of class, outside of class. They can do it before school, after school, during school, anytime. We also have the opportunity for assignment submission. They can snap photos of their sketchbook assignments. Instead of handing me 25 sketchbooks, they can snap a photo, post it, and then I can provide feedback right there. Obviously UDL centered. They can also submit their artist statements, but I actually developed a new process for that, which I'm really excited about, and I'll show you in a minute. The quizzes and polls are great formative and summative assessment tools that can be done in class, outside of class, of course. And then, of course, the sense of community, because my students are able to collaborate with other students in the same grade, because I teach 2 classes of 7th grade, 2 of 6th, and 1 of 8th. So both 7th grade classes can collaborate and both 6th grade classes can collaborate. Unfortunately, the 8th graders don't really have anyone to collaborate with but themselves. So you can go to the next one. All right, and then I'm going to guide you through a project from start to finish and kind of show you how the devices are used along the way. So you can click there. All right, so this is what one of the projects looks like that if you selected it from the drop-down menu on the 7th grade menu, this is what it looks like. This top portion, it houses, you can go down just a little bit, the project sheet, portrait examples that I wanted to show them ahead of time, and then it also has the past student examples on my blog. This is something that they would access before class, so kind of the flipped class model. They would be responsible for viewing all of these examples, developing a brief understanding of what the project is all about, and then coming to class prepared with that tiny bit of knowledge. I guess if you click on the project sheet, just to show how easily a PDF or a Word document can be pulled up right on my website. Yep. And it's, yep, I should just pull up. And then there's their background information, their objectives, procedures, grading criteria, and then they can see the general rubric. And go back. All right, so this would be one of the Edmodo discussion topics. I would link to my website from Edmodo, and then they always vary, but this one in particular, I used ThingLink to have them compare and contrast medieval portraiture with more modern portraiture. So if you click on the hotspot, it will link them to a website with medieval information, and then if you go down, they were comparing it to these more modern styles. And then they would respond to that on Edmodo, and then people can, collaborate there. This is also part of the flipped classroom model. They would have to view these videos at home or on their own time. They're very short. I don't add a lot of homework or anything like that. But they could also follow along to practice before class or during class or the next day or halfway through the project or whenever they feel the need. And there are 3 videos there. You don't have to click on them. And then if you go down, this is the part that I recently developed. Since we now have Google Apps for Education, I decided to use Google Forms to get rid of all the paper that I had them writing their artist statements on. It's kind of like the evaluation at the end, the assessment. If you click on that, it's all built in right here. So on their devices in class, they can fill out their artist statement where they're describing, analyzing, interpreting, and judging their artwork. And then that kicks back to me in a spreadsheet so that I can see everyone's work. No paper involved. Okay. Yeah, just go back to the presentation. Well, I guess, it's on, yeah. All right, so short and sweet, overall benefits are that, number one, it saves paper. The flipped classroom model leaves them more time to create artwork in class, especially with 47-minute periods in middle school. I have them do a lot of that on their own time or when they need it. It provides easy access at their fingertips, like I've said before, to class information on my website and on Edmodo. It differentiates instruction and fosters independent learners. They can take it and run with it if they need to, or they can get a little extra help if they need it in class because they've, It also promotes UDL and Salient 5. And then we've seen that the students are more engaged throughout all of Windsor Knolls. So I created a little video also. This was just kind of a fun little app I have on my iPad. It's a little iMovie app, and these are some student testimonials. No problem. It should work. It should work. Nope. Oh. Clearly there's something wrong with the video stuff. No, it definitely should work.
It's a conspiracy.
That iPad PC thing.
Yeah, right? Oh, maybe. It's all saved on Google Drive. It should be fine. There we go. trailer feature. So yeah, all right.
Very nice. Thank you, Ms. Neal.
Might have
Yes,
covered it
Mrs.
all.
Cusimano and then Dr.
Might have
Bengali.
covered it all with them.
So I just have to ask, did you have a traditional classroom before the BYOD?
More traditional than not, yeah. I did have my website built before we had access to BYOD. So when I was told students had access to devices, that just, light bulb. They have access to my website. I don't need paper anymore. I don't have to hand out handouts. I don't need to, I don't know, pass out any visual examples. I don't even really need to hold on to student artwork from past years because I can put it all on my blog and I can direct them right to it. So, yes.
So in your classroom, do students have sketch pads and all the traditional accoutrements that you would find in a visual arts classroom?
Yeah, we still have all that traditional stuff. Yeah, we can't really get rid of that yet. They work in their sketchbooks. Is this thing on?
Yes, it is.
Oh, they work in their sketchbooks. They do thumbnail sketches, rough drafts, and then we work on paper, obviously. But the device is just a really great resource to help them along the way.
Again, this is one of the areas because visual arts it is such a tactile class, and art is an experience that I think students can have, drawing and cutting and creating and making, and I would never want to see that replaced with a video screen.
Right.
So that's one of my concerns. I'm curious, do you have any quantitative measure beyond just the students seem more engaged and they think it's pretty cool? Do you have a completion ratio that's higher, grade performance that's better?
I've seen my students' grades go up, yeah. Just in the past, I would have them take notes, the elements of art, the principles of design, and now I can provide them with that on my website, and they can go to it, they can study it. They've really, really adapted the language of art, I think, better this year than I've seen in past years. So.
In an art class or any class, performance-based, that's really what we're talking about. Any of the performance-based courses, we don't want to get away from the hands-on, the artsy stuff, right? Just like you're talking about. But I think what this provides is an opportunity for kids to watch the different videos, research the history about it, pause the video, go back, I'm struggling with this technique, spend a little bit of time on it, and then for the ones that are getting it, take them to the next level. And here's a few options for you, and I don't have to stand in front of the whole class and deliver the same instruction to everyone. I can just move everyone forward and backward based on where they need to be.
And I think it also brings in that, you're writing about it. When you're doing Edmodo, you're not just doing the creative arts piece, but it brings in that written piece. It brings in the collaborative piece when you're talking about working with others and sharing artwork electronically. Because I don't think you're replacing sketching or painting or any of
none
those
of that.
things.
That's all still very well in place.
So do you currently have students who are special needs students who, because we do have some special needs students that struggle with manipulation of devices. Do you have an alternative for them?
I think it varies from student to student. I can take them to, I was fortunate to buy 5 laptop computers, and that helps a lot because I can sit with them and work with them. If I have a tablet for them, I can sit with them and work with them. But if they feel more comfortable handwriting something or, using a scribe or something, of course I'm going to provide that accommodation,
So you bought 5 laptop computers. I have to ask, local school budget, part of the BYOD budget?
Part of our yearbook fund.
Okay.
It went to
school.
some technology, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Bengali?
Well, congratulations. I think you brought your classroom in 21st century. You have different level kids, 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
7th and
How do you
8th,
level they come unprepared. 6th graders don't know that much about computers. By the time 8th grade, they are super masters. They know, but they're not like 8th graders where you can, I've seen 8th graders run with a tablet and move around things. I can't do that fast. So how do you level your education? You showed us this whole piece. What grade level was that?
Right. Well, I think you'd be surprised. The 6th graders, they know quite a bit. I spend time teaching them how to use whatever resource we're using. It takes a little while to get them familiar with Edmodo, and it takes a little while to get them fully familiar with my website also. So you just kind of have to plan for that time to really teach them what it's all about. And I even wrote a blog post about what a flipped classroom was so that they would understand it before I actually threw it at them.
I like this because this is an enjoyable art class, is very enjoyable, and they, through that, they get into technology very easily. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you very much.
Mr. Young?
I know we got to move along, so I just want to say thank you for your presentation. And in addition to being an outstanding art teacher, Lindsay's also a former softball coach with me at Walkersville.
For a year, sort of.
Dr. Miller?
Just a quick question, although I have a lot more, but in the interest of time. So how much time do you think you spent? Because you said a lot about designing and creating things. I mean, it sounds like it was an investment of time, but then the benefits are you have more time now.
Yes, correct. I spent a lot of time
Okay.
developing that website, and actually it's ongoing. I mean, every time I find a new resource or a new tutorial or a new video, I'll post it up there, I'll direct them to it, and it's just a work in progress, and it just keeps getting better.
And then how far out, like, are your lesson plans? I mean, as far as with the flipped classroom, things like that, or just kind of?
I mean, I change my mind a lot. Okay. I'm an art teacher. I like to
Perfectionist
change my
tendencies.
projects from year to year. Yeah, and I have projects from last year that are on there that I could use. I keep adding to it. I'll flip-flop the pages around so that they can go in order. So it's ever-changing.
Well, it's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you
All
very
right.
much, Ms. Neal. Thank you for all that
Thank
you do in
you
the
very
classroom.
much. Thank you.
Great job.
Appreciate it. Here makes sense.
Okay. And the next group we have, excited to bring to you Spring Ridge elementary students. Tracy Flower is going to talk to you a little bit about what her classroom looks like and how she's using BYOD and how she's creating a digital learning environment over there with her fifth graders. So she's got some fifth graders here I'd like to introduce. And so we have Michael Wheeler. Michael, if you could just let everybody know. Okay. Peyton Weatherholt. Peyton's over here. Madison Springola. There's Madison. She's been smiling since 6 o'clock. Aren't you proud of her? Eric Allen. Okay, and so Eric's over here, and I'm going to hand the floor to Tracy.
Good evening. So these students are part of the lucky bunch, fortunate bunch from Spring Ridge Elementary, 4th and 5th graders that have participated in the BYOD wireless grant this year and pilot this year. So right now what they're doing is we're going to model for you what a classroom might look like. I'm actually the math specialist, so I go in and out of classrooms. So this group of students, I've had the opportunity to be in their classroom and work with small groups of them. So what they're modeling for you tonight is what it might look like in one of their classrooms if the teacher's working with a small group, and this group of students is working independently where you might have seen in the past maybe a worksheet that they're all doing, and then they finish that worksheet. There might be another worksheet or a book workup for the fast finisher. So they're going to model for you what might happen in a classroom if the teacher has a small group. Their assignment is listed on Edmodo, and you heard about Edmodo with the other two presenters as well. So it's an online, student-friendly social networking site where the teacher can communicate with the students can communicate with the teacher, the students can communicate with each other, and you'll see that when they present this to you, as well as posting pictures, videos, and other things on the site. The other nice thing that we'll share as well is that parents can have access to the site. So I know now with a lot of manipulatives and not as many worksheets going home, parents might ask how they know what's going on in the classroom and how they know, how their child is doing. Well, with these iPads, they are going to take pictures of their work. So not only when I'm working with my small group will I, wonder what my students are doing, I'll have access to what they were doing, their communication between each other, but I also can share that with their parents. So let's see if we can.
And while you're doing that, I see people out there trying to take pictures of their students, and if you would like to just come up and snap a few from back here, you're welcome to do that.
Okay, so initially on this assignment, I wanted to go ahead and refresh it. Initially on this assignment, what they were supposed to do first is what we were talking about too with Lindsay's presentation, maybe the flipped classroom style. So I'm with another group working. They're going to watch a Learn Zillion video on multiplying a fraction by a whole number. So they would have watched the video. The nice thing is students that need to hear it more than once can stop it, take notes, they can replay it. A student that understands, has background knowledge, might listen to it one time and move on to the assignment. After their video, they are responding to this question using whatever manipulatives or model they would like. So it's very flexible. And the question is, Mrs. Flower is making 7 goodie bags. I have it on here. Okay, Mrs. Flower is making 7 goodie bags as prizes for her math students. If she fills each goodie bag with 1/3 cups of candy, how much candy did she use in all? So they're going to choose how they're representing their solution. Once they finish representing their solution, they're going to take a picture of it with their iPad. They're going to respond, they're going to post how they did it, and then the directions state that they can communicate, and they'll be, they're used to doing that in the classroom. They can communicate with each other. So, and we wanted to set up this way to show that in a typical classroom, they're not sitting right by each other. So Michael or Eric over there might be asking questions to one of the girls about what they might have posted. So I'll refresh this so we can see what they might have said.
So this is what just happened.
This is what just happened. So here's Peyton's representation. She used a number line. Madison used Cuisinart rods. And the boys are still posting, which again, so they're going at their own pace. The directions up there too, when they were finished, which we'll have a little bit to show you about this, we are using at Spring Ridge 2 different applications, one called Front Row that just our school is piloting, and one called Dreambox. Both apps, both adapt to students' ability, their math ability. They will assess where they are. They're assessing constantly through the program, but they'll assess where they start. They'll meet them where they are and give them math games and different activities to do based on what they need. And then they provide amazing reports for the teachers. So when they're finished, they will go to their either Dreambox or Front Row site. So if you want to scroll, we'll just look, for the sake of time, we'll look down at Madison's. So Peyton presented hers with pattern blocks. Okay. So Peyton asked Madison a question. How do the Cuisinart rods help you solve the problem? And, Madison can respond back to her. They can have this communication going on throughout the class, while I'm working with another group. All right, Eric, do you want to come on up and we'll show Dreambox while the others are still finishing? Yeah. So I'll log in for him if you want to share, Eric.
Dreambox is a fun way to learn math, new practices I've already been taught. I can access from my desk before school starts and at the end of the day, and when I finish my work, I feel successful when I pass a level and get to move on to the next.
So this is just a snapshot of Eric's Dreambox site where he has different units he can choose from. So we're just going to take you real quick to his place value unit that Eric's been working on. And Eric, do you want to share what's happening here?
Well, what you had to do is you had to find what the tens, then the hundreds place value is, like how it says 0, 14. You have to find it what's in the ones place.
And fill it in. You're supposed to fill that in then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Eric.
And each of the other students has something that they would like to share too about their experiences with the BYOD and the iPads. Should we put them?
Before we had iPads in our classroom, only our teacher could see when we did great work in class. Now our work can be sent to parents, principals, and others just by taking a quick picture or video with our device. I think kids are more focused when working on our devices because all kids like working with technology.
We can take control of our own learning now. We can work at our own pace, and when we work on programs that adjust to our ability, like Front Row, it is never too hard or too easy for us.
It makes learning much more exciting. School never gets boring. Before we had the Promethean board that the teacher used, the students could take turns. Now we get to be engaged in the class period. It does not take much time as it did when we had to log on to the computer in the computer lab.
Thank you.
Do you have questions for the kids?
Of course we do. Questions for the kids? Yes, Mrs. Cusimano.
So I'm looking at these awesome devices. Do these stay in your classroom, or do you guys take devices home with you? Go ahead.
Well, sometimes we had to like sign. Each class gets their each turn to get their iPads. So you had to like sign them out.
So when you take it home with you, how do you keep that safe?
We don't take it home. They stay at school.
Eric was sharing, we have one class set of iPads for the school, and so it was decided that through the pilot, 4th and 5th graders would start with it. These are students in 2 5th grade classrooms that have the opportunity that really the iPad cart stays in their room, and if others need it, come to them. So they have access the majority of the day.
Mrs. Smith?
Now, this is your second year, isn't it, of doing this?
No.
At Spring Ridge?
No.
No, this is their first year.
Oh, I thought last year. Well, then I can't ask you the question I was going to ask you. But I really have enjoyed what you're doing. You really like this better than the way you used to learn?
I like it better because I feel more focused because I like working with technology.
One of those digital kids. Thank you.
Dr. Miller?
I definitely believe you on the focus part because I know my kids can spend hours and hours on it. Do you, do they have to do your teachers have to force you to put them away, to stop learning, to go to lunch or something, or?
Sometimes the teachers, when they tell us to put it away, kids don't want to put it away because it's so fun.
Did that ever happen before with your math books and stuff like that?
No.
Just checking. Very interesting. And then my other question is the Dreambox, is that a paid site or is that a subscription or is that something free or?
The Dreambox is paid, and the county has licenses that have been distributed to the elementary schools in the county.
Okay. And then and then the kids can access it at home.
They can if they have an account. So not every child in the school has an account, but if they have an account, they can access it at home, they can access it at school, anywhere.
Okay. Do you guys think, we talk about technology and kind of how isolating it is, how you don't talk to your friends as much, okay? Do you guys feel like you actually share more because of the way this was set up, like asking your friends questions and sharing more during class, or do you feel like you shared more before?
I feel like we share more when we have devices instead of with our math books.
It's easier to ask questions to other kids and see what they're doing. You can see what everybody's doing.
And sometimes our teacher will let us go back and forth with each other because sometimes on Front Row we need help with a question, and what our teachers want us to do first is go ask a student first, or if they don't know how to do it, then you have to go ask the teacher.
Dr. Bengali?
Well, first of all, I'm very impressed. When I was your age, I didn't even know what computers were. And congratulations to your teacher. So do you do computers work at home also when you go home?
Sometimes for language arts, she gives us assignments, and if we have access to a computer, then we do it. But because some kids don't have access in our class, so she makes rough copies, and she gives them to them.
So when you do homework on computer, you email to your teacher?
Well, not necessarily. Like, she can go on the websites that we go on, like Quizlet. She gives us word study homework, and she can go on it and check if we've done it or not.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you.
They can even tell, I think, in some programs, what time the student was on there and how much time the student spent on it.
Mr. Young?
I wanted to ask you all, how do you think we should make up all the extra snow days? I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
No comment.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to give an
He's
answer.
kidding. He's joking.
We have to wrestle with that later. The question I have, have you thought about what you want to be when you grow up? Any of you?
What a tough question.
If you have, then that's fine. As technology inspired any of you to want to be involved in technology?
I want to be like some type of engineer. I think it's called, I forget what it's called. Never mind. Wait. Never mind.
Mrs. Cusimano?
So the Dreambox software that we were looking at, and we saw a collection of modules that the student could click on. Do you, as a teacher, do you select what topics they can click into?
They have each domain in the Common Core that they need to eventually go to. It's their choice. Once they finish a section, then they can choose a different one. But as far as the leveling, it adapts to where they are. So no, sometimes, we've had teachers we use as an intervention too. So we've even had teachers say that they're doing one thing in the classroom and the students are doing something very different on Dreambox, but it might be 1 year prior to their current grade level. And in other cases too, it's used for enrichment because they could be a year beyond their current grade level. So it really adapts to where they are. So no, with Dreambox, we don't have any control over where they go and what they work on. Front Row, which is a site that we're piloting right now, that's a little bit different, and we do have a little bit more control over that. And that every student in our 5th grade at Spring Ridge has access to that program.
So are these software applications, are you evaluating both of them, or Dreambox is something that we are signing on for? Do you know?
Dr. Horn. We are evaluating both. We are tracking both. We're looking at data for both. We've had ongoing conversations with the intervention department on it because we are looking at the students. We have some students that are on both programs, like Eric, so that's a little bit different, but the students that, where they started, then how much time they're on the program, that's very important, and then what growth they've made and with both programs, so we are looking at both. I can tell you that if you ask the students that are on both programs, they certainly prefer one over the other, so we have their input too to take.
Well, I thank you guys so much for coming out tonight, and all of you have done such an excellent job of demonstrating and speaking to us. And I can tell you, Mr. Young threw a really tough curveball question at you. He's a softball coach, by the way. If you were listening to Miss Neal, there are schools around the country right now that when they have a snow day, everybody takes their tablet home and joins the classroom like at Moto, and they do their assignments and talk to each other while mom and dad are shoveling the driveway. That's no fun. So thank you for coming out.
Mrs. Groth?
I thank you all for coming, and I particularly want to thank you for how beautifully you behaved, having to wait through all of these other topics that might or might not have been of interest to you. But I think you were I think you showed an extreme amount of maturity, and I'm very proud of you, and I'm certainly glad you go to FCPS because we want to know that we are teaching children who can learn to behave in a situation like this. As maybe it was a little uncomfortable for you, but you certainly did do a great job. So thank you for that. But let me ask your teacher, and maybe Mr. Stark, what is going to become of all of this wonderful stuff that they've learned to do this year when they hit 6th grade next year? How is that going to, certainly the skills they've learned will hold them in good stead, but how will the BYOD carry on with them in middle school.
So really just to give Mr. Root and his team a ton of credit, I believe I heard today that we've got 34 schools that are ready they have the wireless infrastructure to begin BYOD. Does that mean that they'll all have student access to BYOD next year? No. The way we're taking this, we will have all schools set up with the infrastructure by the start of next school year to do BYOD. But really what we're doing is we're trying to do this, kind of what Dr. Lockard was talking about early, careful, cautious, readiness levels, everyone's kind of at a different place. So right now, we're leaving it up to the building administrator to determine whether or not we're going to turn BYOD on for the students. Some schools are choosing just to turn it on for staff, and that's okay. That's where your comfort level is. Eventually, we'll all get there, but we're just going to get there at different paces.
It looks like, I don't know where you all were going to middle school, probably Oakdale Middle, maybe? Thomas Johnson Middle, okay. So maybe you'll find each other at TJ Middle School, and maybe you will know how to do this at school. I don't know whether you'll be able to have your own devices in class, maybe not. But the fact is you've learned a whole new set of skills, and I don't want you to forget what it was you learned, because whether you get to do it next year in middle school in 6th grade or not, you will have a skill for a lifetime. And so don't forget how to use those skills and how to communicate effectively amongst yourselves and to communicate effectively with your teachers. And again, congratulations on a really great performance for us. We appreciate knowing you. Thank you.
Well, I want to, on behalf of the board, thank you. I'm cognizant of bedtime for you all. So we are so excited to see you guys so excited. And that's what's so great about this presentation. I could tell you were excited just sitting there for that 2 hours that you've been sitting there waiting to show us what you've been doing in your classroom. So we really appreciate you coming and waiting through all this entire meeting to show us what you've been working on. So thank you very much. I want to thank your families for bringing you out tonight, and get right to bed when you go home. Ms. Flower, thank you so much for all that you do in the classroom and for coming to speak with us this evening. Do we have any?
I just want to also thank the students, the parents, Ms. Neal, Ms. Flower, once again for showing us that glimpse of what it can look like. And the other possible answer to Mrs. Groth's question is, of course they'll be able to do it in middle school next year because we'll get the funding. And Dr. Lockard said earlier, where did we want to start?
Middle school.
Middle school, absolutely. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, okay?
Thank you. Did we have any other general questions or were you done with? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Good job. Okay, so we have one more, thank you. And so our last group's going to be coming here from Lewistown. Happy to introduce Carly Cross, 3rd grade pyramid teacher, Lewistown Elementary, Amy Bowman-Pollitt, our ACT team leader.
I'm just going to wait for him to bring up the presentation.
So far, I'm doing a great job.
Good luck, He's doing great.
It won't be a problem.
That's a tough act to follow. It is a tough act to follow. And I do apologize. I'm fighting a cold, so I'm hoping my voice lasts throughout this evening. But again, my name is Amy Bowman-Pollitt, and I'm currently in the special education department. I'm an augmentative communication and technology team leader, and I was charged with the very big task of integrating tablet technology into our elementary challenges and elementary pyramid programs for this year. And while I have Carly Cross here with me from Lewistown, this did encompass 5 different schools. Brett, you can go to the next slide.
All right.
So this process actually started in the spring of last year, and it took quite a long time to get together lots of different key players and stakeholders to talk about how we wanted to incorporate this technology into some of our special ed programs. And we brought together some administrators, the assistive technology team, special education, some teachers, speech language pathologists, and so on. And we met quite a few times to really talk about what is our vision for this technology. And we came up with the idea of using tablet technology to effectively engage and motivate students during communication and instructional activities when used alongside of traditional teaching methods. I know Steve Lockard mentioned this is not something to replace the teacher, but used to enhance and be one more tool in the student's toolbox and the teacher's toolbox to use to motivate and reach those students. It gives our students, especially in special education, a way to access their education and to meet them with the needs that the special needs that they may have because of the different assistive technologies that may be available on those tablets. So again, the scope was elementary pyramid and elementary challenges, so that's 5 schools. So we're talking not only Lewistown, but Carroll Manor Elementary School, Middletown Primary, Middletown Elementary, and Deer Crossing currently. And I want to impress upon you that this is, well, it feels like they've been in place for a while. It's really quite in its infancy. The hardware was distributed right before Christmas in 2013. So we're really talking about 3 solid months that the hardware has been in place. So when I polled, excuse me, the teachers as far as where are they currently using the tablets, it was our goal not only to use them academically and for communication, but to specifically target the high academic need areas of math, reading, and writing. So it was I was very happy to see when they responded that 100% of the ones that responded said they are currently using them in math and reading and writing, but some of them have branched out to science and social studies, and if you'll notice, 4 others responded that they're using them in other areas as well. So we might have circle time, we might have therapy, we might have interventions and such. Then I asked them, and 88% of the teachers agreed that the majority of their students are more enthusiastic. I'm sure after everything you heard, this comes as no shock. More enthusiastic about tablet lessons compared to traditional paper and pencil lessons. And you'll notice that nobody disagreed with that statement. Next slide. And then these were 2 separate statements that I asked them to evaluate, and 75% of teachers responded that student engagement and motivation increases with tablet use, and 25% were neutral, but nobody disagreed. And then I asked for some very candid feedback on how is it going, what's working well, what are some of your struggles, and overwhelmingly I received paragraphs and paragraphs of positive feedback. Which I had originally outlined in lots of lengthy detail for you, but given the time, I'm glad I condensed it. So as an overview, to kind of compress what they said, I've heard resoundingly from the teachers, tablets have increased student ownership, student responsibility, something that's very hard to instill in our students in these specialized programs. Responsibility, risk-taking, frustration-free, independent work time, social engagement, and social skills. And this is where Carly comes in because she's in the classroom working with the students and the tablets, and I want to turn it over to her for a little bit to give some firsthand testimony of what she's seen and how it affects her classroom.
Absolutely. So I work in the Pyramid program. I have my own classroom. I have 6 kids in my room. They all are accessing a tablet at this time. I have my concerns going in with this, just like anybody else, being able to use technology. How am I going to balance my day between presenting technology to my students, but also having that conversational piece, having that open dialogue? And my biggest surprise using the tablets was that conversation piece skyrocketed. Working with children with severe needs, it's often difficult to get that communication open and to have that safe environment where the conversation flows throughout the day. But using these tablets, these students have tapped into social skills that I didn't know some of them even had, especially some new ones that I have now in my Pyramid classroom. Meaning if they're working on an app or activity, they'll ask to share what they're doing with another classmate. They'll get up and move themselves across the room to a student who they were previously arguing with 10 minutes earlier just to engage with them on the activity that they were successful with. It speaks wonders to see them taking pride and ownership over their work. We're taking snapshots of their work like you saw earlier with the kids at their desks, and we're sending it to old teachers who they used to work with at their home schools. We're sending it to parents. We are printing it out and hanging it in the classroom. It's really great to see these conversations happening. I use it for intervention purposes as well. I access the Dreambox. My students use that app on their iPads. And students who which you'll see, I think I'm jumping to my next slide, but you'll see that students who before did not have any interest in risk-taking, in jumping forward with math concepts that seemed difficult for them, are now on their iPad learning the concept before they even come to work with me in a whole group setting. And it shocks me to see, and I question, where did you get that from? And they're, well, I just learned it on Dreambox. I just understood it from that app. So then they can present what they've learned to me, and we can collaborate together as a team. Just having that open dialogue, having that environment where students are not losing their frustration. Their tolerance has extended. They're able to spend more time accessing what the standards, the curriculum, and less time fighting me on what we're doing in the classroom, and really taking pride and ownership in what they're doing and willing to share it and to grow in the classroom environment.
Oh, this is my slide. Excuse me. One of the things I heard from a teacher was that one of her surprising revelations is that their students discovered that math or writing is not something hateful. And I'm going to lose my voice, I apologize. As you know, for some special needs students, writing can be a very difficult task. Trying to take pen to paper and get what's in here onto that paper is very difficult. There's different disabilities that are at play. But with the tablet technology, it allows for things like speech to text, to allow the students to speak in, if they are verbal, and have it translated into text for them. So it takes that layer of frustration away. Before, on a computer, we might have to have specialized software installed or go through a very lengthy process of training. The tablets have eliminated that gap. There's also different apps in place that we have allowed for students to record their voice so they can speak and just have it recorded so the teacher can go back and play and listen to their comprehension. And because of that, their comprehension and their writing have been able to take off by using these assistive features within the tablets. I think we're ready for the next slide.
And if you read the next quote, I kind of touched on this a few minutes ago. Math interventions are very difficult with students who already feel unsuccessful in the area of math. Being able to provide this intervention with them on a tablet, you would think it wouldn't make a huge difference, but the difference has been significant. One of my students who I was not able to get to access at all, to get through one lesson on the Dreambox app, has now been through about 4 or 5 since she started accessing it on a tablet. So just being able to see her engage with the math standard, whatever math concept she's working with at that time, and being able to conversate about it, to tell me what she has learned, what progress she feels she has made, and to see her progression through it by earning coins to go to the next level, or being able to access a game she wasn't able to access before. It's that immediate feedback that my students appreciate the most, knowing, okay, I have error, it's okay, I made a mistake, I need to move forward, I need to try a new strategy. Or whether it's, wow, I was successful, something that I wasn't able to do before, I now feel very capable of doing. So it gives them that pride and that ownership. They take responsibility each day to come in and make that a part of their day, which is pretty amazing. And in closing, we just want to leave you with this quote, which I think is powerful enough without having to repeat it. But I didn't personally make this quote, but I can personally agree with it 100%. The tablet has not replaced me in the classroom, thank goodness. I'm still there, I'm still teaching. It hasn't replaced paper. I take home loads of paper to grade every night. But it has engaged my students in a way that I didn't feel possible when I first started teaching. It really has allowed them to be not afraid to take risks, which if you have worked sometimes in a specialized program, children with severe needs, it's often difficult for them to take that risk. It's provided different modalities, ways to learn. They're hearing it, they're seeing it, they're touching the screen. And I think that they are proud of that. I think that they are socially engaged, they're accessing the social skills that we work on in our program. And I also think that it's provided opportunities to be independent, which is a tough transition for a lot of our students to go from relying on an adult support to going to be independent. But I can safely say that a lot of my students who were not independent before are now there, and they're comfortable being there, which is a huge step.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any questions
Well,
for us?
thank you for coming out, and let me see if we have questions. Yes, Dr. Miller?
Just a quick comment. Actually, I'm glad you had this last presentation because it was actually one of my questions was the impact on special ed and how we've been able to reach the kids. And I know for certain types of disabilities, the iPad is so versatile as far as what you can do and how you can help them and how you can reach them. So I am so glad you guys took this on in this program, and I look forward to what the impact on these students and their achievement will be, because I think it's going to be tremendous.
Absolutely, setting that
Thank you.
precedent is
I
really
agree.
huge.
Mrs. Cusimano?
So I am curious, as I'm hearing Dr. Miller say, I also just applaud, and I think our special needs students, almost more than any of our students, can benefit from a lot of these tools, especially kids who struggle with communications and cognitive issues. Are we using only iPads, or are you using different tablets in these programs?
If my voice holds out. Currently, the way we have it, we have the tablets segmented into two different categories right now. So we have a lot of communication tablets, which are currently iPads in place. And there was the rationale behind that. When we started putting iPads in place strictly for communication needs, for our nonverbal students, which is separate from this initiative. This is more academic. About 2 years ago, Apple's, the iPad is the one that we went to for the communication apps. The other platforms just
They've
didn't
been the
have.
first to the game. I know I hear
Absolutely.
from parents and therapists
Yes.
all the time how wonderful they are and they work
Absolutely.
so great.
So for communication right now, Apple is the reason, those communication apps are the reason why we went the Apple route. Bridging the gap into academic, some of our students in these programs already have familiarity with the iPad because of the communication boards, and it would be less of a learning curve for them. And truly, a lot of the special needs apps that work for these programs are on the Apple platform. As we look forward, we're not looking strictly at Apple. We're branching out to all different types of tablet technologies. We know there are Chromebooks, we're different Windows devices and Google devices and Android devices that have a lot more assistive technology capabilities coming along with them. So we are not limited to the iPad platform, but for this particular initiative, because that's where we started, it was easiest for us to just kind of stay with one platform as we move forward.
So as those platform decisions are made, how do you have a voice in those? Because I know we're piloting and testing different equipment all the time. How are we making sure that we've got our special needs people recognized and differentiated if they need to be?
Derek, do you want to talk a little bit about how you go about selecting a tablet or device?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. So in Amy's case specifically, we've dedicated a resource to Amy that she can lean on because of the specific nature of what she's doing with the iPads and how she's handling using the iPad. So one of my high-end resources in my shop has been spending a lot of time with Amy, where she walked away already. Has been spending a lot of time with her, partly because she's an army of one dealing with these iPads, and there's a lot of changes and a lot of activity in that environment, just in managing them. And she's also based at a single school, but serves programs at multiple schools. So we've given her a lot of extra hand-holding along the way. Does that work?
So even as you're moving forward and testing out different devices, Amy serves as the voice for our special needs students, or?
Amy and the special ed department do, yeah. So I'm very good at technology. It's what I've done my whole career and my whole life, but I'm an awful special ed teacher. So yeah, I lean on them for the input, and then I try to work within the parameters that they give me to provide them what they need. You know, obviously I don't have unlimited funding or unlimited budgets to work with, but I will give them everything that they ask for within the constraints of what we have available.
And I just want to recognize that this is a microcosm of all of our classrooms.
Exactly.
And so I want to make sure that all of our teachers have a voice in what works and does not work for them, their topics, their classrooms, their schools. But our special needs community is very, something that could create an obstacle to their ability to use the same device would make it useless. And so we don't want to invest in something that won't
Absolutely,
work.
and we even have cases, not in this particular pilot, But in our assistive technology team, where we're looking at a student who doesn't necessarily have severe disabilities, but it might be a mild disability, and we can find things as simple as, Siri that works for him, or using Edmodo, something that is more of a gen ed type of UDL approach to education that they weren't, the teachers weren't thinking would be a solution for helping that particular student. So it's amazing that as the technology moves forward, we're finding more and more universal design for learning approach tends to bridge that gap to the special needs students. And as far as selecting the technology, Derek has been a wonderful resource because especially this year, we have assistive technology members represented at the technology resource teacher meetings, as well as we have vision collaboration meetings with special ed, vision itinerant teachers, assistive technology. We all come together and brainstorm. These are our needs in the special education department. Let's come together as a group to solve them. What can we do? And it's really a way to get our voice out there and be apprised of the new technology as it's coming out and what may be solutions for us that Derek can be aware of and vice versa. So.
Thank you very much.
Steve.
Thank you. We have one more person quickly to share. Curtis Orndorff, he's the manager of maintenance services. And I said at the beginning, this is not just about the classroom, but about our system and how we're looking at efficiencies across our organization, ultimately to make things as, the conditions as best as possible in our classrooms. So, Mr. Orndorff.
Good evening, President Schaefer, Vice President Groff, Superintendent Albin, board members. When I first heard of wireless technologies, I asked for permission to tag along. Just let me be a part. Let me see what kind of efficiencies we can gain in maintenance by going to a wireless device, putting information in the hands of a mechanic that's out in the field. We were given permission to go out and investigate devices to use, and we chose Samsung Galaxy. That seemed to be the best fit for us. We had talked with many people that use School Dude as their computerized maintenance management software, and that was the device of choice for them. Apple was second, and Microsoft devices they just did not have real good success with at all. So we worked with IT, and Derek and Chris Bonner got us set up. We got 14 devices out there with the lead mechanics and 2 mechanics that are actually working on equipment. We felt it was important for the lead mechanics to be familiar with the devices before we started putting them in the hands of the general mechanics. So Ann had come to me and said, I need to go out and see what the guys are doing with these tablets. Who can I go see? So I sent her out with an electrician. And he just happened to have a work order for a combi oven in the kitchen. So he takes a picture of the data plate, takes a picture of the oven, shoots off an email to the vendor. A couple of minutes later, he's got a response back. You're out of luck. We no longer have parts for that. But that quickly, he was able to come to that resolution of that matter. Forward the email on to food services, and he was done with it. With School Dude, we're trying to move towards automatic routing of preventive maintenance work orders straight to a mechanic. Takes somebody sorting paper out of the picture. We've got 170,000 pieces of equipment that we're performing preventive maintenance on. So that's a lot of equipment. With the automatic routing, as soon as there is a change of status of that work order, an email can be triggered to the person that has requested it. And so you'll have an instant notification that the work order's been assigned. Somebody has checked it out, but he's waiting on parts, or it's been completed. And that'll go back to the person that originated the work order. That's one of the biggest complaints that we hear, that I don't know where my work order is or what has happened to my work order. So we feel like there are a lot of efficiencies that we can gain. Mechanics have access to building blueprints. They have access to O&M manuals that have been scanned and are stored on the server. access to the building management system. Get a call for a hot room, they can pull it up, look at it. If they need to turn off and on the device that they're working on, they can do it from right there while they're working on it instead of running back and forth. So we're seeing great things. I think when you put tech services people and maintenance guys in the room together, you get a whole bunch of questions going back and forth and a whole bunch of thought process, and it really got some really good comments going back and forth between the two groups. Any questions?
Well, first, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us and for your forward thinking in terms of our movement towards technology. Yes, Mrs. Cusimano has a question for you.
I do appreciate you coming out tonight, and I am the one who's always data seeking. Do you have any measure of productivity, and has it gotten better?
At this point, we do not. It's still early in the process. We just, in the last 3 months, got our last building of inventory into School Dude. Our pilot with the tablets has been a very small pilot as far as in the hands of the actual mechanic.
Part of which has been driven by the fact that in a lot of the schools, there wasn't Wi-Fi access yet for the tablets. So you heard Mr. Stark say earlier that we've just enabled staff-based Wi-Fi for these types of devices throughout all of the systems that are already wired up. And of those, there are only a handful left that aren't done yet. They're still under construction. But now we have the infrastructure in place for these guys to be out there doing their jobs. And we really do hope to be able to take those measures of efficiency going forward.
So, and just to cover, because we were actually given a presentation about the School Dude software, and that this is actually going to help our maintenance mechanics to schedule proactive maintenance of all of these machinery and devices and all the things, the many, many, many things that you guys take care of through the school system. So, out of all your mechanics, now I'm curious, how many mechanics do you have, and how many have a tablet?
We have 90 mechanics right now, and only 2 mechanics have tablets at this point.
Right.
I can tell you that the interest is there. I got a phone call again today. Can I get 2 more tablets for my guys? So
How many of them actually have a
accepted
personal cell
it.
phone? How many of your guys have a personal smartphone? Because I will tell you, as soon as that starts to spread, that I took a picture of the oven and I knew where the parts were, and next thing you know, everybody's out there with their HTC Evo, and is that happening at all, or?
I really don't know how many of them personally have a smartphone. I do know that some of them do, and some of them use it for work purposes.
Yeah.
But I really don't know what that number is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Young.
I was going to follow, I think you answered part of it, and the question was going to be is, do you have a dedicated Wi-Fi service, or if you were using the Wi-Fi within the school, and it sounds like that's what you're doing.
That's correct.
And to follow up on our first speaker from the CTC was saying they had some issues with it in the custodial area. Are you finding that in other buildings, or do you have pretty good service?
But like Derek had said, we've had very limited access to Wi-Fi at this point.
So you
But
don't really
now
have
that the
enough
buildings are
experience.
coming back on,
Yeah.
we'll get a better feel for where we do have it and where we don't have it.
And we'll have to take a look at what the electromagnetic interference that happens in the types of areas these guys work in, right? They're in areas with compressors running and refrigerators running, and there's lots of interference,
I
right?
say, wouldn't some of your stuff also be outside on top of the building and?
That's a
in areas that-
possibility, and we haven't extended Wi-Fi to outside the buildings beyond where it bleeds out on its own anyway. So at some level, these guys, like on the roof, may be hampered. It's a cost-benefit analysis at that
Right.
point. An exterior grade, hardened access point to put outside of a school is a multi-$1,000 access point. So we have to start to weigh, do we want to
Well, and
invest
that's why I
in
was
that?
thinking at some point, maybe the consideration might be to getting a Wi-Fi service for those if they're going to be using them for that purpose as opposed to getting the Wi-Fi.
Oh, they've already started, even the couple guys that have these have already been hitting me up to get it in the parking lot, so when they pull in their van, they can get connected. So they're anxious to get hold of it, so.
Dr. Miller, and then.
Yeah, and I do, and we talked about with CTC, we talked about industry standard and things like that, and I'm so glad that you took the initiative to work on this, because, we talk about the classrooms, but this is the most basic part of our school. The most basic part of our classroom is to have that comfortable, safe, stable learning environment, which is what you guys do every day. So I am so glad. It sounds like that it's, I don't know, like building blueprints, I think the phone is good for what you're saying, taking a part number, maybe something like that, research, but as far as blueprints and access to the building systems, exactly. Visually wise, I think that might be a little bit of a challenge. So I completely support this. I think it's amazing. I think it'll be amazing for our staff, and to work on efficiencies and synergies, I think would be awesome.
And
Good
we're
job.
very
Thank you.
thankful of the administrative staff that have supported us and the board that has supported us with funding.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Warey?
I have a question, and I think, I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer it, but at my high school, I'm not sure how long we've had our Wi-Fi for, but I just discovered it a few days ago that I can actually connect to it through my phone. And so on the, when you go to the Wi-Fi to connect it, there's the terms of a service, or that you have to agree for it. And apparently some of the students were looking into it, and they were kind of curious about just how much, the people can see, who are running the FCPS Wi-Fi can see, because as you know, iPhones have iMessage, which is connected to the internet. So some of the students were kind of reluctant to use the school Wi-Fi because they have this fear that you can read their text messages.
You can see everything.
My guys spend most of their day reading text messages from high school students. That's
a good message.
Yeah, it is. I just wanted to know that Big Brother's watching. No, iMessage specifically is an Apple-specific protocol that doesn't really. It traverses via the Wi-Fi, but frankly, they're much less secure connecting to a cellular tower than they are via the Wi-Fi. That message and what you read there is geared towards internet usage and making sure that the people who do use our systems understand that they can be monitored, and at some level they are being monitored. And these are our policies and regulations. It's an informational thing. Everybody has to know the boundaries within which we work every day. Everyone signed that same documentation when they went to middle and high school. We all signed that same documentation when we came to work here, so it applies to everybody equally. But no, we don't really have time to sit around and read everybody's text messages every day.
I would just like to, though, reinforce, and I do think it's important for students to recognize, we are living in a world of digital data.
Yes.
Correct.
And every signal that you send can be read. Who controls those networks, who's reading it, who's looking over it, it all can be retrieved and read. And so our students need to be aware of that and recognize that when they take a picture of themselves and send it to their boyfriend, they really have lost control of that data. And so I think that's a message that we really have to consistently, we're putting devices in the hands of students. We're doing BYOD and inviting our students to bring their own tablets from home, some of which have Wi-Fi access that is not going through FCPS, but is going through 3G or 4G to Verizon and T-Mobile and, all of these other companies. So responsible use of these devices and recognition that somebody can read everything you're sending all day.
Dr. Bengali's been waiting.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I think the system you're proposing is going to bring great efficiency and savings of dollars in the long run. But it will be a while before we can provide tablet to all your mechanics. So you'll have to develop a system of sharing available equipment at school or wherever. And the second is to provide iPhones, which can at least provide ordering information. Because I don't expect them to use their private iPhones to do schoolwork.
Yeah.
So you will have to come up with some kind of a plan, because if you wait for tablets, every 10 years by the time you get the way the funding is.
I think if we can do tablets and use our own Wi-Fi, it's going to be cheaper than trying to pay for a data plan with cell phones. So,
Much cheaper.
once again, when we
some
talk
plan.
about the 3-year plan that Dr. Lockhart mentioned earlier, we have included in that funding to also address some of the needs on the operational side of the house, because once again, improving our process and efficiency there is very important as well.
So that's very good to hear that, I think. Because I see a great promise in this system you're developing.
We've even heard from some of our suppliers that the future is going to lead towards video teleconferencing with a factory rep. If you have a problem, you
That's
just pull up your device and
Skype
you
'em.
you show him what you're talking about, and he says, yep, that's it.
Yeah, that's
Thank
great.
you very much.
Dr. Miller?
Just a quick question, this was part of my other list. Are you doing any classroom adaptations as far as for the BYOD, extra chargers, charging stations, outlets, anything like that?
As we
plan?
move forward with classroom sets of tablets, then yes, we do adaptations. Now,
Okay.
the great thing about tablet technology over older technology like laptops and PCs is that tablet that I have sitting on the chair there, that's an example of what the middle schools are getting, right? That tablet draws 1 watt of power when it's charging. So a full classroom set of those is less than a light bulb. From
Wow.
power perspective. So, but we have included, I think you saw in the stakeholders group of the presentation earlier, that facilities would be included in that to make sure we have adequate charging and facility capabilities. Because there is a load to be considered on the infrastructure of the building and what his team has to support as well, too.
And as far as design of new buildings, I know that has been a topic of discussion and included in plans for Frederick High School, for an example.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it is being thought of.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Orndorff.
Thank you.
Did you have any?
Do you want to close?
And I don't know if we have general questions for the team. Yes, go ahead.
So one of the things that I've been puzzling over for some time, we have all these standardized testing requirements coming at us. And I am seeing a lot of demonstration of devices, tablets, netbooks, computers, and then I'm reading different things about different levels of the park assessments and interactive capabilities. And do we have a requirement of what devices can participate in the park assessments?
We do, and I'd be happy to share that with the board if you want. Both the state and Pearson have produced a document together of what's compatible with parks. So as we move forward with planning devices, with the exception of one device, which would be the iPad mini, which we view as very valuable for certain applications, special ed, especially the little ones, right? With littler hands, right? Everything else we look at or that we move forward with purchasing will be park compatible. There are some basic requirements, a physical keyboard, the ability to plug in a headset, a certain screen size and resolution are your basic requirements, along with some very minimal processor-based requirements. Even 6- and 7-year-old PCs generally meet the processing power of park, because a lot of it's done off-site. So yeah, we keep all of that in mind as we move forward with any kind of technology buy, because we always have in the back of our heads that we have to test a whole lot of students and not a whole lot of time.
And do we have the ability to test, so the park assessments that we're giving to our students, do we have the ability to run through technology tests of the test?
We do. We're in field testing right now. We did what they called an infrastructure trial about 2 weeks ago. It was met with varying levels of success, but fortunately, we found very quickly that our technology, our infrastructure to access the field test or the infrastructure trial performed very well, and the issues was code related, so it was more on the Pearson side of things. So we have been able to test the technology side of the test along the way, and we'll continue to do so as we move forward.
So I had one more question, and it is because I've heard from a couple of our teachers as they're, this is completely unrelated to the devices, but it comes back to the technology use everywhere, and we've got web-based solutions for grading, for, the multitude of things that all of our staff are doing. And if we've got a teacher who is logging on after business hours and finishing up their grade book, and they're on a deadline and report cards are due, I know I have experienced this myself. We all saw Brett trying to, work through a problematic solution tonight. is there now, are you developing or talking about, so for instance, a teacher who's on a web browser and the pull downs, the Java buttons aren't working and links and clicks and stuff aren't happening. I know in technology, you try another browser, you do an update of your browser, reboot your machine. But this is someone who's on a deadline and they're under panic and they're emailing everybody in the universe. Do we have a knowledge base? Do we have a quick reference? I can help myself figure out my problem kind of a thing in the works?
We don't have a whole lot of FAQs, if that's what you're looking for each of the individual applications. Say, what's the application where they do grades, for instance? Pinnacle, right? So Pinnacle itself has some FAQ pages in it, but if you can't get to Pinnacle, then if it's after hours, you really are going to be a little bit at the mercy of calling the help desk and waiting for a response from that perspective, especially if you're doing it from your own personal device on your own personal internet connection. Now, if they're here and it's after hours, I've taken steps over the last couple of months to expand the amount of time that my help desk is available. They're not just sort of 8:30 to 4 or whatever anymore. I have a much broader period to help cover some of those things. But from the perspective of, can I help myself through getting reconnected to Pinnacle? No, I don't think we have anything.
So, but even just recognize, and it's one of those things I continue to say, I want, as a board, I think that we have to be aware of what we're demanding of our teachers. And even if they were to take a county-issued device that was working on the network here, they take it home and connect to their Wi-Fi at home, there could be ports blocked.
Absolutely.
There could be firewalls engaged that are not here. And so there's this whole myriad of, and we've now got them, Pinnacle, Global Scholar, they've got, this application, that application, and they're accountable and responsible for these many, many feeds of data that, they could be seeking all the time.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for the information.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to add, we're running out of time, and I know we have another issue to get to, but I just want to ask one final question regarding your budget that you put up. Those are not necessarily in priority order. They're not year 1, year 2, year 3. Is that correct, or?
Wasn't that only year 1?
That was year 1.
Okay.
$6 million.
But I'm saying it's not in priority order in terms of this is what we would fund first, second, and third. It's really going to depend on the funding.
Well, yes, once again, the funding would determine how much we could get. But for example, you can't say, all right, well, we'll get the devices and we'll sacrifice the PD.
Right.
They are so integrated, and obviously, we need to put it in the hands of the teachers before we put it into the hands of their students. So they truly are intertwined and interlocked. So if we didn't get enough money to do all of middle school, we might have to look at a grade level.
And so in terms of the next board decision point, that's when that would come back to us once we get a funding amount. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's a correct assumption. And then at that point, we would be able to start to hone in on the specifics of a plan of okay, are we targeting a grade level, or are we targeting everybody, or a curricular area, or however that would
I think
work.
the board's decision point would be, would you accept the money? That would be the next decision point, and then once we got the money, we could, outline a plan for, how much we could do with it, where we could go.
Right.
And then I think if we don't, I think we still need to come up with an alternative plan, because this needs to be the way to go, whether it's adopt a classroom, adopt a kid.
Wasn't
We have to
that
come up with
obvious
something.
this evening that we have to?
We have
It's
to,
time.
yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.